future. There are no people in the future. No people at all. There are no people in the future. Where did all my people go? There are no people in the future. Let me try my people call. Where are all my people? Where are all my people? I guess I'll fly away.
Hey everybody, it is Friday, May 28th, 2021. Welcome to Raging Chicken's Out to Coop podcast. Yes, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. Each week I talk to vaccinated shitposter Sean Kitchen about the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. Yes, everybody, we are streaming live on our YouTube channel. Thank you, everybody who's already joining the show. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to the comments and the discussion today. And if you listen on YouTube right now, make sure you smash that subscribe button, like the stream, and hit the bell so you know every time we go live. And if you're listening to the podcast and the after broadcast, head on over to our YouTube channel and make sure you subscribe to that, like the stream, and hit that notification bell. It's like, this is how we kind of get noticed. We are at the 119 subscriber mark at this point. I know it's not kind of like setting any records at this point, but we are kind of keep on ticking up there. Would love to cross that 120 subscriber mark. That would be fantastic. Even better if we got to 125 at the end by the end of the Memorial Day weekend. It'd be fantastic. On today's show, more pressure to end the filibuster as Republican senators refuse to back the January 6th commission. More momentum for Biden's Build Back Better infrastructure proposal. Yep. And new polls, by the way, show that a majority of Pennsylvanians support that proposal. And I don't know if you saw this, but what a week for climate. Holy cow. It was a trifecta for the climate on Wednesday. A Dutch court ordered that Royal Dutch Shell has to cut its global carbon emissions by 45% by the end of 2030. I swear to God, it's something out of a science fiction novel. I swear to God. I'm like, Kim Stanley Robinson, did you write this? Anyways, so that's number one. Number two, this all happened on the same day. Number two, shareholder activists pushed out two of Exxon's handpicked board members and elected members who, quote, pledged to steer the company toward cleaner energy and away from oil and gas, unquote. And three, again, on Wednesday, within hours of the other ones, shareholders at Chevron voted 61% to cut its emissions. Now, the Chevron one has got a little kind of more wishy-washy and a little more PR-ish, and in fact, there's no hard targets. But in that same meeting, there was another proposal that would have required the company to prepare a report on the impact of its business would have on the proposals for a net zero 2050 scenario, right? So that's kind of what the push has been. This is the Biden administration has been talking about. We want to say, okay, we got to have a report here. And it lost, the proposal lost, but it lost 48% of people supporting the proposal. So they almost got a majority on that. It's like, this is huge. This is absolutely huge. In the opposite direction, however, at the same time, ConocoPhillips came up with a unique solution to the melting of the Alaskan permafrost on Alaska's North Slope. Yep. You see, it's got a permit there, and it wants to drill on that, but it's got a big problem. The permafrost that's underneath is melting, therefore the ground is not so good for drilling. So what's their solution? Refreeze the permafrost. That's right. Inject kind of like these big, tubes in there, use a whole bunch of energy to refreeze the permafrost so that you can drill. How about that? I think ConocoPhillips is going to face a ton of backlash for this. And in other climate news, very interesting, a UK-based blimp company is looking to deploy hybrid airships for shorter trips between places like Liverpool and Belfast or Barcelona and the Balearic Islands. The company, Hybrid Air Vehicles, says replacing air and ship traffic with these airships could cut emissions by 90%. 90%, absolutely huge. And half of all U.S. adults are now fully vaccinated, according to the CDC. Whoop, whoop. 50%, that's pretty good. And a new book, this is actually the big news of the week, actually. There was a new book that's out, was finally exposes Bernie Sanders for the sham that he is. Yes, that's right. You will not believe what this foot soldier of the ruling elite's demands are. Yes, when he's on the road and he has to stay at a hotel, he demands hotel rooms with, wait. This is worse than what Trump demanded in terms of getting peed on in hotel rooms. This is worse. Yes. Bernie Sanders demands a king-size bed and temperatures as low as 64 degrees. Oh my God, the hypocrite! Yes, the New York Post was running crazy with this. This is a Fox News thing. Bernie Sanders needs a king-size bed. He's unbelievable. Anyways, in today's PA Focus, ladies and gents, we got him. Sedition hunters, online sleuths, angry partisans, and supporters of the ruling elite unearthed video footage that showed State Senator Doug Mastriano breaching police barricades and walking toward the Capitol steps minutes before the building was breached on January 6th. Dun dun. This latest round of reporting completely undermines the stories and statements Mastriano gave to reporters and Senate leadership in the days following the insurrection. Once footage of Doug Mastriano breaching the police barricades appeared, sedition hunters used PA Spotlight's reporting on an interview Mastriano gave following the insurrection to track Senator Mastriano's whereabouts on the 6th. Uh-oh! Ruh-roh. This unearthed more reporting on the senator. And the question is like, you know, how long are we actually going to see until he's got his head peeking out from inside the Capitol? It's going to be great. Now, if that's not bad enough, Senator Mastriano issued a statement attacking the Huffington Post for reporting on this story and reporting on the fact that he posed for pictures with Sam Lazar, an insurrectionist wanted by the FBI for using bear spray on police officers. Mastriano compared the photos to Obama taking pictures with Bill Ayers and Louis Farrakhan. Mastriano's statements prompted reporters to dig into his connections with Lazar and show that he has posed for photos with Lazar at least 5 times over the past year. Big bear hugs, huh? Keep that bear spray handy. Keeping up with the insurrection, Sandy Weyer, another Mastriano associate who is also known as Sedition Sandy, was named as an FBI affidavit for entering the Capitol on January 6th. Whoop! Speaking of Senator Mastriano, are we speaking of Senator Mastriano? The Arizona Mirror. This story, wait till we talk about this today. This story is great. The Arizona Mirror, a sibling outlet related to the Pennsylvania Capital Star, reported that Senator Mastriano ordered an unauthorized audit of the 2020 election in Fulton County. The company that conducted the audit is associated with Sidney Powell and the Stop the Steal movement. On top of that, they spoiled over $20,000 worth of election equipment that couldn't be used in the previous primary. And well, we'll get into that story. I don't want to go too far into it now because this story is a great story. Representatives Russ Diamond and Barbara Gleim, yes, of the kind of anti-trans fame, they began seeking co-sponsors for legislation that would penalize any schools and school districts that teach critical race theory. Yes, here we are, folks. Here we are. And another Bucks County man, yes, good old Bucks County, the PA1, Leonard Ridge was arrested for allegedly taking part in the January 6th insurrection. Ridge bragged about his involvement on Snapchat. Probably not a good idea, Leonard. Probably a good idea to do some spell checking before you freaking snap your chats too as well. Anyways, we'll talk a little bit more about that coming up. In today's last call, the battle for the billionaire space barons is heating up, and the Senate prepares a $10 billion bailout for Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin after his foo-foos were hurt after he lost the bid to SpaceX for the moon lander. So, yeah, where's the money? Nobody seems to be asking that question. How are you going to pay for it? Nobody seems to be asking. Let's just give $10 billion to Blue Origin, even though they lost the competition for the moon lander. Anyways, in other space news, the European Space Agency is looking to develop a GPS and communication network around the moon to aid in Earth-to-moon communications for future missions. That story is just really blowing my mind. I don't have this in the notes, but the United Arab Emirates, with the help of Japan's space agency, JAXA, is going to be landing its first moon lander. Right, so you're going to see more countries getting into the game as the heat up to the moon settlement, I guess, heats up. Anyways, and the chickens are coming home to roost in the craft beer industry. After employees at Tired Hands Brewery forced the owners to resign from management, more women and workers in the industry are speaking out. We saw this week, for example, Jacob McKeon, founder of the CEO of Modern Times Beer, which has locations across California and Portland, Oregon. He resigned after the Modern Times staff members in Oakland announced on Instagram on Tuesday they would be stopping work until management, quote, acts in a way that aligns with our personal values of inclusion and equality, unquote. Now, a lot of this kind of got the big boost from this woman by the name of Brienne Allen. She's a production manager at Notch Brewing in Salem, Massachusetts. She posted a simple question on her Instagram that said, is anyone else experiencing sexist comments in the beer industry? Right? That was it. And as reported of Boston's WBUR, quote, the answer was this cascade of experiences flooding her private messages with a deluge of trauma. Quote, this is her speaking. It escalated really quickly into people talking about sexual violence and sexual harassment, racism from owners and superiors, and just how the HR system in general is just failing people right now, she said. And it escalated out of control. I have over 1,000 stories up now. She actually started a Google Doc too as well, where people could just anonymously go in and kind of fill up and kind of report these things so we could start to see what's actually happening in here. Now, 2 board members from Philly Loves Beer. One board member is the owner of Evil Genius, Trevor Hayward, and the other was Devil's Den owner Aaron Wallace. Wallace stepped down saying, quote, I really felt if I stayed on the board serving next to these people, it would pretty much be saying their alleged actions were okay. Thomas Keogh, the founders of Yards Brewing Company, is still sitting on the board after allegations came out that Yards fired an employee for being pregnant. Yep, that's leaders of the Philly-based Evil Genius Beer, which we've kind of talked about it there. It issued a statement on the brewery's Instagram account on Saturday. They acknowledged past mismanagement and outlined the company's next steps to improve its culture. I mean, we shall see. I think the reckoning is only beginning. And on that note, I just as a programming note on this show, I'm going to be holding off on beer recommendations for a while. Until some of this stuff we got to start to see the lay of the land. Now, let me be absolutely clear. We have not heard, or at least it's not been publicly out there yet. I have not gone into Brienne Allen's Google Doc yet. I'm going to be planning on doing that this weekend to see if there's any allegations that are happening here at Free Will or some other places that we normally talk about on the show. I have not heard any of that kind of stuff personally. And by not giving beer recommendations, I am not trying to imply that something is awry at Free Will Brewing too as well. But I also know there hasn't been any post on their Facebook page kind of in support of what's going on and kind of calling out this kind of culture. So I'm just going to hold out. We're going to let this all shake out, right? The last thing I'd want to do is inadvertently kind of be supporting, aiding and abetting kind of some mismanagement or some problems. And again, I'm not saying that is at all the case, but the most important thing right now is I think that we let some of this reckoning kind of shake itself out. So just want to be clear about that. That's why you're not going to get beer recs from today. But here we go. Want to remind you to tune in to the Rick Smith Show on Free Speech TV this and every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can stream the show live at freespeech.org or tune in to the Dish Network, DirecTV through the Free Speech TV app on Roku. And make sure to subscribe to Rick's daily podcast on iTunes, Podbean, wherever you get your podcast. And you've got to check out the Sisters of the Night Caucus. That podcast rocks. The PA women stirring the cauldron behind this podcast rock the house, and they know where the bodies are buried. Spooky, right? Well, one way to get over that is to make sure you follow them on Twitter at The Night Caucus. Make sure you support them. You can go to their Patreon. You can become a patron over there. And definitely subscribe to their podcast. Attention gamers, the Game Inn is a Quakertown-based, black family-owned gaming store. They're friends of the show, and they've got everything from retro N64s, the latest consoles, video games, all platforms, collectibles, action figures, Funko Pops, you name it. And kids get discounts with every A on the report card. Check them out on Facebook. You look them out on Twitter at the Game Inn with 2 N's, or kind of just drop them a line at thegameinpa@gmail.com. If you're looking for something special, look at all their info at thegamein.com. Special shout out goes to Jonathan Mann, who wrote our intro song, There Are No People in the Future. Check out all his great stuff on his YouTube page and follow him on Twitter at SongADayMan, again with 2 N's. at Out to Coop Live this coming Monday, we had another kind of call-in show. We had a really good call-in show. We went long actually on Monday because we got some good calls that came in. Talking about organizing, talking about kind of building coalitions. And this show had a small part in actually bringing some of these groups together, which I'm very, very pleased about. This coming Monday at 7 p.m., Brian Bailey is going to be back on the show. I know we've been on a little bit of a higher ed kick lately. And that's, there's a lot of stuff that's going on here. I'm going to want to kind of broaden out that discussion a little bit. We're going to bring Brian in to talk again about some of the things that's happening kind of nationally. An amazing report that just came out by the AAUP, talking about what some of the things that's happening in universities across the country and what we can do in kind of organizing to support that. I want to thank once again all the members and patrons of Raging Chicken who have been with us since 2011 and those folks who just joined here in May. Thanks to all of you for your continued support of this show. Because look, if we want a progressive future, we need progressive media. You got to support Pull No Punches, homegrown progressive media today by becoming a patron of Raging Chicken for as little as $5 a month. Just go to patreon.com/rcpress. Look, we got rid of Trump. Right now we're in the hard work of building a progressive future. Right, we're here for the fight, but we need you. Become a patron for the price of a good beer once a month. Help keep the media in the movement the media. Become a patron for as little as $5 a month by going to patreon.com/rcpress today. Hey Sean, man, how the hell are you?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's been a good week. I actually spent a whole lot of time digging in the garden, doing yard work and stuff, and just kind of being outside.
Nice. Yeah. That's awesome. I was doing some other digging, but I wasn't doing digging in the garden.
Yeah, so probably a good 50% of today's podcast will be a result of that digging.
Yeah, it was actually pretty funny. I actually had a consultant, Republican consultant, come up to me who's in the bag for Shapiro at this point and just said, "Was that you behind the Mastriano and stuff?" And I kind of just laughed and smiled and be like, "Maybe."
You're like, "I don't know."
I mean, he's just like, "I could see you spending like 5 hours on a work day on a Saturday just digging through the stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, sounds about right." So, but no, I mean, like it was. I know we're gonna talk about this in the second half, but it was awesome. Just watching this stuff like unfold Saturday morning. Like it started off with, like Senator Mastriano walking on the Northwest lawn, and then a few hours later it showed him like walking, like breaching a barricade, and a couple hours after that, like walking up to the fucking Capitol. Yeah, I mean, we were talking about Saturday. Like, yeah, I mean, as soon as this stuff was coming out on Twitter, it's like, okay, we have to get this out like first thing on Monday, just because like this will blow up into a national story.
And it is.
And it is. Yeah.
Well, and I have to say I think it's fair to say you've been a bit single-minded about your kind of approaches to Mastriano this week. No, but it's like really been it's been great seeing this story break, which is great. But yeah, we're going to get into all the details, and that's going to be a great one. And I think that Pennsylvania is all the better for it, for sure.
Yep. I mean, I don't mean to like strut my own stuff, but yeah.
No, definitely. I forgot. Let me just say this. I just blew past this in the show notes today. I want to make sure that I announced that. So we did our second. We're calling it the Wednesday show. Cyril Michaleko and I. He's a progressive columnist with the Bucks County Courier-Times and the Intelligencer. We did a show on Wednesday, and we were kind of like, playing around with it a little bit, see if we can do this more regularly, and we're actually going to make it a regular thing. So we have it's our latest addition to Raging Chicken's family of podcasts, and under the Out to Coop banner. This is going to be called the Wednesday Show with Cyril Michaleko, and it's a pretty tight show. It's a nice thing to turn in the middle of the week. It's like 30-40 minutes, and we'll be talking about columns that he's working on, right? This past Wednesday, we talked about his article on Pashi, which was basically, calling for, say, look, you want to save the state system, there's got to be organizing. You got to be prepared, to do the work like they did in Kentucky, like do the work that they did in Arizona and Oklahoma, right? Maybe it is going to take people walking out and refusing to work in order to kind of save the state system. So I was, full disclosure, I was interviewed for the article too as well, so you can see what I got to say there. But you've probably already heard versions of me saying it here. But so Cyril and I are going to be talking about that. We'll be talking about his columns. We're going to be talking about some of the books that we're looking into and reading. Once we get it rolling and we kind of, get our system down, we're probably actually going to bring in some guests too as well. And most likely there's going to be some Wednesdays, which I'm going to hand off the show entirely over to Cyril. As a way to kind of keep that show going. There's going to be times that I'm going to be away and things like this. So I'll hand it over for him to bring on, do some interviews on the show too as well. So that's a fantastic look. And that is, once again, that goes to thanks to all of our patrons who stepped up and who have helped support this show. It's made that possible, right? We're using now Riverside.fm, which is for recording for our live show and for our Wednesday show. That's going to allow for some better audio. It's going to allow for some more listener kind of engagement. That's been possible because of you, right? So thank you once again to all our patrons, and we encourage you can help support Raging Chicken and all of our media outreach by going to patreon.com/rcpress today. Become a patron for a little $5 a month. So anyways, I didn't want that to slip by. I'm sorry that I kind of missed it in the opening, but the Wednesday show, I'm really excited about that. So pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah. Pretty awesome. So, okay. So I definitely want to get to stuff on Mastriano today, but let's go. We'll kind of like keep it a little tight in kind of our national focus here, because look, there's a lot going on this week. And matter of fact, there was a lot of stuff I decided, look, I'm just not going to be able to put in the show today. So instead of trying to include it all, we're just going to kind of not conclude it. So this is scratching the surface. So let me just, like, the first thing off the top of the bat, we see that, once again, we've got, games being played once again, as the Republican senators have come out and basically said, no, we're not going to support this January 6th commission looking into, it's a bipartisan commission that the Republicans were part of defining, passed the House with, I think even 35, I want to say, Republicans who broke ranks and actually supported the commission, right? But, Mitch McConnell was pretty clear about, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to look into it. So you've got Joe Manchin once again playing games, and it's raising this question about the filibuster, whether or not they're going to use this to break the filibuster. But we shall see. I have a question about whether or not that's going to happen. But what was interesting is that Biden also, I have to say, publicly he's been seems to be losing his patience a little bit with Manchin, which is nice to see. Like, basically saying, like, who in the right mind is not going to vote for this? And even to the point where Manchin's saying that, Republicans should be supporting this. Okay, well, if Republicans should be supporting this and they're telling you that they're not going to support it to break the filibuster, what's this? Oh, this is going to be bringing more pressure back on Manchin, right, to make him the kingmaker. But I don't know.
Yeah, and I like, what does Manchin want? Does Manchin want more investigations, like, into, like, Black Lives Matter and the racist bullshit that Republicans want to end this?
No, I mean,
in this report, or is just like, I mean, the thing is, it's like, I think we're getting to the point where Manchin and Sinema are Republicans, and they're just acting like Republicans. They don't have the interest of the future of the country in their hearts. They would rather protect this minoritarian rule in the filibuster, and these people would rather be responsible for the Vox article about, like, are the Democrats sleepwalking us towards the Democratic collapse without passing any major reforms like HR1 and other pro-democracy reforms? And the answer is yes. Yeah. Like, it's not just Democrats who are responsible for it. It'll be Sinema and Manchin who will be responsible for this. Like, absolutely. And it's just like, they will, like, there will be a special place in hell for them, for the people. Like, I just don't think they care about the moment we're in.
No, I don't think they care about it. I don't think they care about it at all. And, I mean, look, I think that what Sam Cedar has said about Manchin, and I think this is more and more true. I'm more and more convinced that this is the case, that, look, this is just about branding for him, right? It's about branding for him, about, bipartisanship and all this stuff. And that's how he's made his career. And, that's allowed him to coast in a particular lane about how he responds to things. And, when you have stuff that comes up, how does he respond? He's got this kind of, this very familiar way. we got to look and we got to work together. And he's going to resist the most proposals from the Democrats. And then he's just hemming and hawing back and forth. But I think, right, this is exposing the limits of that branding exercise. And I think that he's starting to feel some of this pressure about, well, okay, how committed to you are that? How committed are you to that branding exercise when we need to get stuff done? And I think that's an open question. Kristen Sinema is just playing a different game in my mind, right? Kristen Sinema is just kind of like, I think I agree with you on this one. I think Kristen Sinema is she's just a Republican, right? I mean, she is, she wants the cachet of being kind of like progressive or funky and stuff like this. On
the appearance,
right? She wants that, but she's I think she's wedded to it. But we'll see where that's going to get her. I'm not so sure, and in part this is just a function of her being newer to the Senate, that she has, she, in terms of at the national score, she has not been able to establish, that the same kind of branding that.
And she's tanked her approval ratings amongst Democrats
exactly.
in her own, like, I mean, like Arizona is not going to be a Republican state, or it's quickly becoming, these Sunbelt states are quickly becoming blue states because of all the people that are moving and the populations that are exploding there.
Exactly.
Like, like there's, like, you're not have to worry about Republicans winning your seat anymore. I mean, she's going to be having a credible primary challenge from the left if she keeps up with this. And she's tanking her brand, her name she's tanking her support within the Democratic Party.
Absolutely. And I think, look, I mean, she's at the point now where she's going to go back, and I don't think she has an answer for the question of like, why is she against the filibuster, or why is she resisting all this other legislation in the way that Manchin does? I mean, Manchin can actually point to, West Virginia as a state, right? As the reason why he's wants.
Maybe she just wants to be a wrecker. Like use that.
It could be.
Like
I
we
mean,
use that term in the labor movement. You have a wrecker, and that's what she is.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll see. I mean, again, and I'm disgusted by look, I'm disgusted by Susan Collins. I've been disgusted with her for a while. But once again, she said like, oh, sure, I'll vote for the commission, right? As long as it's going to be clear that it's not going to disrupt the filibuster, right? That the Republicans are still going to be able to, are going to thwart this commission, right? If the filibuster stands. So Susan Collins comes over and says, oh yeah, I think we should do it, right? That's the game. Right. So she never really has to have any kind of accountability there, which really sucks. But we shall see. Now, I think this is going to, what the other good thing that's moved. I don't know if you saw this, but like Biden, he's coming out with, he's got a new budget proposal out there. He's talking about like a $5 trillion budget.
6 trillion.
6 trillion. Well, God, I undershot by $1 trillion. $6 trillion budget, right? Which is a large part of this kind of the Build Back Better infrastructure proposal, right? And I'm telling you, this is huge. This would be the greatest amount of public spending since World War II. Right, in a kind of a remake of our infrastructure, our turning of the economy, responding to some of the climate crisis. And again, it's not sufficient, right? But this is bold, and he's already kind of made it, kind of been getting behind this things. Okay, look, Republicans are not going to vote for this. We've tried. They issued some sort of kind of counter proposal, and he just basically flipped them the bird, and now they're getting prepared to move forward with reconciliation, which is where this was going. Anyways, right? The Republicans have no interest whatsoever of actually being honest partners in this, and so this is where we're going. And I like the move by saying like, all right, you're not gonna play, so we're gonna do this. We're gonna go big. We're gonna go $6 trillion big, right? And then the Republicans are gonna say like, no, we want 800 billion instead, right? Literally, the Biden administration and the people in there can go like this. you say what, 900 billion? That's what you said? 800 billion? Ah, that's funny. And walk away.
And then Joe Manchin will come in and say 1.1 trillion.
Yeah, right, exactly. And then he'll eventually get arm twisted or whatever like this. And so, I mean, because look, that bill, right, the Build Back Better, like you see, like in Pennsylvania, again, strong support for this. You're seeing this across the country because it's going to have tangible impacts on people's lives. Right, both in terms of wages, in terms of work, in terms of actually building out all sorts of kind of existing, right, infrastructure that has been ignored, right? Up until now, for example, healthcare infrastructure, elder care infrastructure, kind of schooling infrastructure, a whole bunch of stuff like this, and building out the new future, right? In terms of, say, green energy and new technologies and so on. I mean, this is just kind of where it's got to go. So I'm thrilled to actually see the Democrats for once, right, go big. Right. And not start, as Obama always did, start by like, well, what might be acceptable to the Republicans? Let me do that and give them the acceptable, and then have to negotiate down from there. No, Biden's like, nope, we're going high. We're going big, and we're gonna laugh at the Republicans when they're gonna throw us change. So that's pretty good. So pretty cool. I thought one of the biggest stories of the week, let me, as I say, one of the biggest stories of the week on climate, right? Let me also be clear when saying, I don't want to somehow overstate what the impact of this is going to be, right? Because look, we're talking about, like, in the scheme of things, this is not like hard thing, like, this doesn't change absolutely everything, right? You see a whole bunch of other things, but this was big that this all happened on one day. So the very first thing in The Hague, in the Netherlands, right, there was a court that ordered Royal Dutch Shell to cut its global carbon emissions by 45%, right? And so this by the end of 2030, right? And that's based on numbers from 2019, right? Because that is the number that, say this is by 2030, we have to hit these certain benchmarks in order to stave off the worst of climate change, right? The Friends of the Earth brought this lawsuit against Royal Dutch Shell, saying that basically it's ignoring the kind of commitments of the Netherlands. It's undermining these global treaties, and it's harming. It's doing like actual harm. So in order to kind of stave off that harm, this is what's got to happen. So it's ordering the Royal Dutch Shell to do this, and this matters because it's based in the Netherlands, right? So this is a national government finally taking a stand against corporations that are housed within its borders. So this is huge. Now, again, this is why I say, okay, I don't want to go too far on this, because Royal Dutch Shell is going to appeal it, and this is going to be a big case. But what this marks, it marks a sea change, right? A pivot point, if you will, in terms of the legal cases against the oil and gas industry. It's absolutely huge. So that happens, and then on the same day, you find there's this hedge fund that's called, I knew I should have brought it in here. It's called like Engine One, I think is the name of the hedge fund. And this is interesting from a different angle, right? So now this hedge fund, it claims that it is, it's not kind of an activist hedge fund. It's not like making a political stand at this point, which again, you got to, think about what's all being said there. But the big deal is that this hedge fund basically came out and said, or basically was able to get two of their candidates that they were backing elected to the Exxon Board of Governors. Now, never in Exxon's history, right, or at least the last 50 years or so, has the knighted, or kind of the appointed, or the board members that the company wanted, never have they been voted like against. Not this time. So there were 4 positions that were up, and 2 of the 4 are supported by this hedge fund group, which only owns about 1% of the stock of Exxon, but they were able to convince shareholders to vote for board members who wanted to steer Exxon away from oil and gas, right? And their claim here, and this is why this is also important to watch, their claim was like, look, if you look at what has to happen, right, in terms of the climate, right, this company is either going to change, right, or all its shareholders are going to lose all our money, right? So they're making the case that the market is dictating that they have to change, and change fast. That's huge. And then on the same day, right, Chevron, as I kind of set up here, their shareholders voted 61% they have to cut their emissions, right? And again, this is like it's a little bit more wishy-washy on the Chevron, on the ones, there's not a target there. But these are big deals, right? Because it's breaking the glass on the fire alarm, right? It's basically saying, look, we cannot put this off any further. And when, especially the Friends of the Earth case, once that, because there's been multiple cases like this that are happening all over the world right now, the fact that they won this in a court is just going to take the gloves off. Right. So you're going to see a whole round of lawsuits that are going to be going around the world against the oil and gas industry unless they kind of make these significant changes, which only bolsters, right, the work of climate activists. Like Bill McKibben was on was it the Rachel Maddow show the other night talking about this, and he was like, what happened? Like, wait, what? And what? This happened too? Right. And he was like, again, cautious about it, but again, basically saying pretty straightforward that this was an extraordinary moment in the struggle, which all the more reason why activists need to kind of redouble the efforts to kind of put more pressure upon these companies and our legislators to kind of get ahead of the curve, right? Or actually get on the curve, right? For where. So big news in climate this week from my man. So I know you didn't follow that too much this week, Sean, but I think that was it was just an absolutely critical moment to kind of mark this. I mean, we've been following climate stuff since the very beginning of Raging Chicken, and to see it at this point where we're actually seeing cases being brought forward and won in national courts is astounding to me. So
yes. So we'll update. I think they've reached a deal on the commission.
Oh, really?
Yes, this came across just now from the Hill within the past 15 minutes. So I am just looking at the story now. The Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, a group of Republican conservatives have struck a deal to allow a Friday vote on a bill setting up a bipartisan commission, which will let senators leave Washington for Memorial Day recess early Friday afternoon. The deal is approved by the entire Senate. After being hotline, we'll postpone the final procedural votes, and the final up or down vote on a bill improves the competitiveness with China until next month. So I don't know like what exactly
the deal is they got to go home for Memorial Day weekend. That's the deal.
Yes.
So, great.
It's something we proposed. It's something we proposed. It assures a vote on the January 6th commission in the next hour. It assures it occurs in the daylight of day, not 3 a.m. Schumer announced on the Senate
floor.
Wait,
are they going to vote on the establishment of the commission, or are they voting on whether or not they should allow the vote to happen?
I have no clue. It's just I'm reading this now. I think like the deal ensures that lawmakers who had scheduled overseas trips and other businesses will have to rearrange their schedules. Man, imagine just like holding up the business of the Senate on a Friday. We can do to you.
Are you reading from the Hill?
Yeah, I'm reading from the Hill, which is not really that much of a source, but
let's see.
Let me see. Twitter. What does Twitter have to say?
A key procedural vote in the January 6, this is from CNN, January 6 riot commission is underway on the Senate floor. This is happening now and is expected to fail to reach the needed 60 votes to move on to the actual bill. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer explained that the deal that they've made with the Republican senators is a good solution because they get to vote on the commission and it occurs in the light of day, not 3 a.m, as you read. Schumer also said it's a deal that Democrats proposed. So Schumer said he will speak more on the commission after the vote as well. So basically what this is the procedural vote. So basically what this is doing is this is basically showcasing the fact that Republicans are going to stand in the way of the establishment of the commission. That's all this is, right? So, and they're not going to allow for the actual vote. They're going to actually exercise the filibuster. And then this is going to be say, okay, do you want this commission or not? And then when you come back after the Memorial Day break, after everyone's rested, after their overseas trips, so that God forbid they didn't have to cancel them, we're able to kind of get back to the business, and we'll find out that this is gonna that Manchin is gonna take center stage once again, is my guess.
So it's just a whole bunch of nothing.
Well, no, I mean it's an important step, but it's again, it's at least we get to the next point where we're going to see Republicans are actually going to have to say no, we're going to stand in the way of this commission getting established, which is good. But I said this last week too as well. I do not believe that this is actually going to be the thing that's going to kill the filibuster, as much as I think Chuck Schumer believes it is. But we'll see.
It's amazing. It's still amazing, like the faith Democrats are putting it. Oh well, can't we just get 10 Republicans to vote for this? When they're just like lining up behind Trump and behind what happened on January 6th, like
right.
lockstep and key. Like, I mean, I think we should talk. We're probably going to talk about this more in the second half of Mastriano, but like Democrats really have to use this against them to like tie an anchor around the next Republicans in 2022 if they want any chance of winning. And like that's the thing Democrats failed to do in 2020 was put an anchor around the Republicans' necks on Trump,
right,
and sink them with Trump. And like,
it's just not going to happen.
And you see even here in Harrisburg, it's amazing how like even after all the bullshit with the election that went on, like these Democrats in Harrisburg see these Republicans as their friends and not their like political adversaries, and that people who want to keep them in the permanent minority through their actions. Like it's just amazing that this doesn't get through the minds of Democrats on the state or like national levels.
I hear you. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do? So, hey, a couple more quick things on climate, and then we'll kind of go. I want to get to the Mastriano stuff quick. So, one, if you have not heard this ConocoPhillips story, it just blows my mind. Okay, ConocoPhillips, once again, kind of gigantic, oil company, right? I'm just gonna read you just a couple things from the Guardian story on this. So here it is. The oil company ConocoPhillips had a problem. It wanted to pump 160,000 more barrels of oil each day from a new project on Alaska's North Slope. So this is a new project which is newly permitted, right, in an area of Alaska that had been once protected. So let's be clear about that. But the fossil fuels it and others produce are leading to global heating, and the Arctic is melting. The firm's drilling infrastructure could be at risk atop thawing and unstable permafrost. A recent environmental review of the project described the company's solution: cooling devices that will chill the ground beneath the structures and insulating them from the effects of the climate crisis. Okay? So ConocoPhillips, the company that is in part responsible for the warming of the climate, has a problem of the climate warming. So it's going to freeze the ground so that it can continue to pump out more oil so that it could burn it, deepening the climate crisis. You got that?
This is what we call a negative feedback loop.
It is. This is this is a more extreme version of the opening in Naomi Klein's book. This changes everything. The opening story she tells in that book is about there was this jetliner that was on the tarmac, right? But they couldn't get it to take off. Right. And so the big problem, everybody had to get off the plane. What was the problem? It was so hot, right, that the tires melted to the tarmac. Right. And so they had to bring, and they tried to tow it. They couldn't get it moving by towing it. They couldn't do it. They actually had to bring in these big diesel trucks, right, in order to free the plane from the tarmac. Right. So they had to burn more fossil fuels in order to get this fossil fuel burning plane, right, off the, this kind of stuff. Right. So she told that as this kind of like negative feedback loop story. Right. This one right here has got to take the cake. The ConocoPhillips story is got to absolutely take the cake.
And this is while like the melting permafrost is releasing methane
exactly
into the atmosphere, which is like, like worse than carbon dioxide.
Yeah, look, this is why this is such a crisis right now. Like countries like Norway and Russia, right? They are also kind of advancing new Arctic oil development, right? Under Trump administration, Alaska kind of emerged as the hotbed, right? Because he's like permitting people all over the place. And look, and the Biden administration is continuing it. So this is what, Bill McKibben, when he's talking about how the need to kind of ramp up the kind of pressure, this is why. Right. So good news on those court cases, good news on the shareholder stuff. But kind of meanwhile, like, the actual companies are kind of fully drilling in. So they're crazy. In a cool version of the story, right? No pun intended. A UK-based blimp company is looking to develop hybrid airships for trips kind of across like, the English Channel and stuff. This is it's really fascinating. It's a really good story. The link is in the show notes. You can check it out. But this would actually reduce emissions for those routes by about 90%, which is absolutely huge. And Kim Stanley Robinson, who I've talked about on the show kind of multiple times before, His newest book is called The Ministry of the Future, and it talks about, it's in the near future on the climate crisis and so on. And this is one of the shifts that happens in transportation, right? They have to make these shift to these airships, right? And there's all this kind of this technological and kind of like, innovative and research boom in developing these airships that are more efficient and more effective of travel, blimps basically, right? For traveling kind of across the Atlantic and stuff. And then the bringing back of these giant sail ships, right, replacing the kind of the cargo containers and so on, and yet it changes the way and people's relationship to travel. So to actually see this UK-based company actually coming out and doing this, and they're actually going to start piloting some of this stuff soon, is an absolutely fascinating development. It's going to be, in my mind, it may be the case, like, by the time my kids are in college, this may be a regular thing, right? It's only 10 years down the road. Less than that. I'm sorry. It's a lot less than that. I'm scared because my kids are going to college. Whatever. Last but not least, we should say half of all U.S. adults are vaccinated. That's fantastic. But the big news, of course, this week that took the right wing by storm was that a new book came out and says that Bernie Sanders likes king beds and low temperatures in his hotel room. How about that? Did you like that story this week, Sean? I thought that was fun.
Absolutely. It was the best story of the week. They got him. They finally caught him for being a hypocritical capitalist.
Yeah. And God forbid he likes, he should have refused all beds, had nothing but a cot, and just, shut off the air because, that would have, that contributes obviously to the climate crisis and all this stuff. You shut off the air and just kind of like, sweat. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. All right, good. Everybody, anything else for the good of the order? The first part of the show, Sean?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
All right, excellent. We're going to kind of switch pretty quickly, and we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about good old State Senator Doug Mastriano. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. You could become a patron of this show and help support the expansion of this kind of media outlet by going to patreon.com/rcpress. Become a patron for as little as $5 a month. We'll be back right after this quick break. Welcome back, everybody. It's Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken, here once again with vaccinated shitposter himself, Sean Kitchen. Talking here about some stuff that's happened in Pennsylvania. Well, it's really been exploding kind of even at a national level here. So take it away, Sean. It's been quite a week for you and everyone in your little shitposting world.
Yes. So photos and screenshots began emerging of Senator Mastriano on Saturday morning of him walking on the Capitol lawn, breaching the steps, breaching a barricade, and doing this stuff like literally like as the riots were happening and as people were breaking into the Capitol and as like he was literally there minutes before people fucking rushed the doors. And I mean, like this so this is something we've been tracking at work for like the past 3 or 4 months now. We found this interview of Senator Mastriano that he gave to a local Chambersburg radio station back in January, literally like days after it happened, and we've been waiting to release it for a bit now. We released it the day after the New Yorker released their profile on Mastriano, was able to drive traffic to that, and the sedition hunters ended up using our tracking that interview, following him. They use that timeline. It's like, oh, well, if he was here at this time and he witnessed this breach, then he was here around this time and witnessed the first breach on the other side of the Capitol. So and they found photos of him on both sides of the Capitol as the building was getting breached on both sides. And if you remember that first rush of people where they're on top of the skirt, right? This is what the other side without the scaffolding. and you have the people breaking the Capitol and them like waving them on,
Right.
and the cops just falling back. Mastriano was like at the forefront of that crowd on the northwest side of the Capitol.
He was just letting some other people clear the way for him a little bit.
Yeah, and so
he probably felt like Moses parting the water, right?
Yeah, parting the water. But I mean, like, so if we watch this chronologically, like Mastriano gave statements that he was not involved and he left as soon as things were going down. He told that to the Senate. He told it to the media back in January. He told that to pretty much like the radio station. They walked back to their hotel, got on the bus, went back home.
He said this. He said this repeatedly on his Facebook Lives too, as well. Like initially,
yeah, he said,
"Yep,"
like said on Facebook Live and
interviews that he gave that were reported on by like in the Harrisburg Press. Yep.
I'm pretty sure he told this to the state police as well, or the attorney general's office. Like, he's probably been contacted. It's pretty much like a fact that he's been contacted by the state police at this point about his actions on the insurrection. So, like, did he lie to the state police about that? Like,
that would be a no-no, I think, right?
That would be a really big no-no. Like, so, he's
gonna sit there. He's gonna go to the police and say, "Hey, look,
I'm doing the best I
can." Like, so now, like, this is months, later, and these photos start appearing. The sedition hunters, who like these online internet sleuths, angry partisans, and as he called them, foot soldiers of the ruling elite.
Now available on T-shirts at Raging Chicken's online store.
And well, like they found these videos from stuff that was pulled down from Parler, the ProPublica resources. Like ProPublica put a database together of all the video from Parler of that day, and has them labeled like inside the Capitol, around DC, and around the Capitol or near the Capitol. So like you can see Mastriano multiple times that day near the Capitol going through. He was wearing a blue hat, his neck scarf that he always wears, the keffiyeh, and his wife was wearing a plaid black and white shirt, flannel, like a button down flannel. Like, so stuff that like made him pretty recognizable, like
easy to identify in pictures, for example.
Yeah, like the OPSEC, the operational security of these people. But like it's and it's amazing that he went so long without getting noticed with this. Kind of flew under the radar since then. There's other stories that are popping up, him getting pictures with this guy Sam Lazar on multiple occasions through the past year. I think the quotes that he gave about the HuffPo story were pretty hilarious, saying that like, he never crossed the police line because the police lines were shifting all day. Well, no fucking shit, the police lines were shifting.
Why were they shifting? Oh, because people were like overrunning them. That's why.
Yeah. Like that's like saying the lines in World War II shifted when, like Germany was invading countries left and right. Like,
for example, who knows what was Germany, what was France, what was, it's like.
But no, it's so I mean, yeah, it's just been an astonishing week. So
it has been. Well, Sean, you got to say this though in Mastriano's defense. I mean,
nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
So I mean, he didn't know what was going to happen.
I mean, like, well, we were talking about this on Saturday when these photos were coming out, like just going back and forth, like here comes people, like here comes, and like I knew as soon as I saw them, like this was going to be a big deal. Like this was going to turn into a national story, because he lied and he told like the Senate leadership and everyone he didn't break the law that day, and he didn't cross any police lines or barricades. When you clearly see him like breaching like the fence twice. And what's amazing about that interview, he said like these weren't our people; these were agitators breaking down the police barricades. They weren't our people. I've been to plenty of rallies. These aren't our people. Like, yeah, it's just like turns out they were his people.
They were his people, and we know that there was his people, right? And so the big question now is going to be, I think, we talked a little bit about this before too, is what's this going to do to his candidacy? I mean, and what's going to happen to the the Republican Party in this state? Because I mean, look who we got. We got Mastriano, right? And we've got, what's his face? Why am I forgetting his name?
Lou Barletta, horse teeth.
Lou Barletta, right? Who's like, you know, the anti-immigrant racist from Hazleton, right? These are the two.
Bill McSwain.
And Bill McSwain. McSwain does Bill McSwain even have like a chance in hell to get the nomination?
No, I don't think so. But no. Like this is who we have running,
right? So this is your pool, right? So then, you know, again, so what's
and they chased out like the only Republicans who could win statewide races,
right? Exactly.
Like Dave Reed could probably be the only person that could challenge Josh Shapiro in a general election, but he'll never get through a primary.
Right. Exactly. And so this shows you, you know, again, there's a reason why that, you know, Pennsylvania sent more people to the insurrection than any other state, right? Yes, we're kind of closer to D.C. than, say, for example, I don't know, Mississippi or something like this, right? And I'm just chose that out of the random thing. But this is, you know, PA is a hotbed for this stuff. And the PA Republican Party has, you know, they've lost any control that was quote unquote control from like the so-called moderates has been lost a long time ago. And there's no getting it back. Right. So the question is that, you know, look, either with Mastriano or Barletta, right, reasonably, one of those two is going to be your nominee. Right. The question now is going to be what's the likely impact going to be? I mean, like on the one hand, it's going to drive the crazies. Right. It's going to further drive this kind of rift that's going on. But I mean, at this point, I can't see how they could win a general election.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, because they are reestablishing the base. They're not expanding the base. They're not broadening the electorate in their party.
They're dumping the gasoline.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
I mean, like, they're establishing the new base as the fringe when like the old base, like your Charlie Dents of the world, even your like Montgomery County business type people, your Bucks County, like where the base used to be, like where the money was, like in those rich suburbs of like Yardley and Bluebell, like the power, like Doylestown, like that whole area of the Southeast, like where this money was concentrated with the Republican Party. Those people are either dead, they're dying, or they're just not going to be voting for the Republicans anymore. Like you're not, like the old money guard of the Republican Party is just not dealing with this stuff anymore with these Republicans.
No, right.
Like, sure, a good number of them will probably come out and just punch the ticket anyway. But like, this is like, they're not, you know, I've had some conversations with Republicans. I've known, you know, Republican lobbyists in Harrisburg, you know, part of the insider crowd here. But like, no, I've talked to Republicans who have either switched their party affiliation to independent because of January 6th and because of Trump. Like, you know, a lot of people like were going that way. And then the 6th just like broke that camel's back for plenty of people. You know, like, yeah, I question the motives of how come you didn't switch parties sooner. But like a lot of the Republicans that I know in Harrisburg who are in this political class, like most likely just didn't vote for Trump. They either just left the line blank or voted for Biden. But like, you know, I've talked to some Republicans who they're going to be voting for Shapiro, probably because Shapiro is a Republican, but like, that's a whole nother debate.
It's a different discussion, right? Exactly. And
but I mean, like, this is what like, this is where they're going. And with like Mastriano is going to be just driving down turnout for his party if he gets the nomination.
Well, you know, this is why, like, Shanna commented on this too as well, and I think she's dead on, of course, that said, you know, they're going to try to win by preventing us from voting. I mean, I think this you know, shows you that that's all they've got left now, right? Is to absolutely drive down voter turnout and do their best to kind of discourage anyone that is, you know, not the most rabid Republican base from voting, right? So I mean, I only imagine we're going to see that ramping up over the next year.
Yeah, I mean, 2020 is going to be interesting with the dynamics. We have the Legislative Reform Commission going on. New lines will be drawn here in Pennsylvania next year. Something important that happened was in the show notes, but we should probably be talking about, since Democrats control the Legislative Reform Commission because they're controlling the Supreme Court. The first thing that was mentioned at this week's LRC meeting was the abolition of prison gerrymandering in Pennsylvania. McClinton talked about it. This is something that flew under the radar a bit. Capital Star reported on this, but no, I mean, like, and Costa spoke in support of abolishing prison gerrymandering. So we're going to have radically different maps because you have some counties where a third of their population is prison population.
Right.
And these lines are being drawn in a way where these people are serving a couple years in prison, but the lines are drawn to favor that for the next 10 years. So, I mean, like, a lot of changes are coming in 2022. It's just how significant will they be?
Yep. I hear you, man.
But no, I mean, the outlook is they're not going to have a voter suppression agenda for 2022, but they can certainly have one for 2023 by putting an amendment on the ballot, like we just saw this past primary. So, I mean, like, this is something we have to watch out for.
Indeed. So, I got Mastriano. So now
more Mastriano stuff.
We're going to talk more about, yeah. So this is, well, where do you want to go from here? Because there's there's the story that I want to pop to you, but I'll let you take the lead on this.
So there's another insurrectionist in the area who was named in an FBI affidavit, Sandy Wire. She was profiled in the New Yorker story. She had some pretty insane fucking tweets that Eliza cited. The FBI, she was named in an affidavit. She wasn't the subject of the affidavit, but she was named in the affidavit for taking photos inside and outside the Capitol. She deleted her Facebook account, but according to the affidavit, the FBI served Facebook with a search warrant. Facebook complied and got photos of her inside the Capitol and outside the Capitol. She's another associate of Mastriano who has been going to all these rallies, who I've seen picture of Mastriano. She's been going to all the Stop the Steal rallies. She's been going to the Audit the Vote rallies. I mean, like, these people are relentless.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you see the same thing with Lazar. Lazar was pictured with Mastriano 5 times over the past year. He's wanted for bear spraying police officers. On the 5th, Mastriano put out a statement comparing the pictures to, like, Obama getting photographed with Bill Ayers and Louis Farrakhan. And after he put that out, Ryan J. Riley from Huffington Post put out more photos of Mastriano with Lazar over the past year. And Lazar was pictured at the quote unquote hearing in Gettysburg last year.
Big quote unquote.
In scare quotes, put that in scare quotes. But no, Lazar was seen on the news feeds sitting behind Rudy with his Nazi haircut. So, like, this guy has been a long time associate of Mastriano. You have another woman, her name's Sedition Sandy. That's what she's been called lately. This woman has been leading protests against vaccination sites here in central Pennsylvania. She's been leading anti-mask rallies at, like, supermarkets and stuff like that, you know, taking photos of herself in these places. So, I mean, like, this is just another couple stories of, like, you know, these are Mastriano supporters. This is who his base is.
Yep.
I mean, I don't think there's enough. I mean, I think he gets blown out in a general, but my fear is what happens after he loses.
Well, what it's going to do? Look, I also look at we talked about this last week. Cyril and I talked about this on the Wednesday show. Is that, you know, I believe that it drives the crazies to turnout that are going to have impacts on local elections. I mean, I don't know though.
I don't know how effective that'll be. Like, I mean, I don't know if these are people who are going to turn into super voters on the Republican side.
So let me I'm going to float this. This is something I've been mulling around in my head for a while. And I'm doing some reading around this and just to kind of try to see if I'm right. So I began thinking a lot about this here. So if you look at what some of these candidates for these school board and local elections are, right? These really kind of off the edge of the QAnon planet, right? One of the things that they do, and this is something that's true about all conspiracy theorists, right? People who get really roped into conspiracy theory are people who, Mike Gambone does a class on conspiracy theorists, for example. He and I have talked about this a little bit before, where, the thing about conspiracies is they have grains of truth, right? And they're information rich. Right. So there's lots of data points and lots of information kind of along the lines. Right. So what the QAnon people have done, like conspiracy theorists in the past, is they follow all these cues and these trails and stuff. Right. And they're really good about getting into minutia and the weeds. Right. And that, in a sense, is what drives a lot of the people that have gone off that end. And it seems to me that is the perfect training ground to get people to pay attention to really what I think most people find is kind of like, uninteresting local politics and politics of school boards and politics of zoning commissions and politics of, say, local governance, right? I think generally that we live in a culture that people are disinterested in the minutia of government, right? But these people are trained for it now. And so what I think that what that does is that allows them to make issues around these local elections that people like remember, school board and a lot of local elections, people don't even have to run as a party, right? Or a lot of times they're on both tickets, right? If you're not paying attention to that, because they understand that process because they've been paying attention to it. And so for me is that the more that you drive those kind of people to the polls, and the more that you've got these kind of like these signals, right, about whether it's critical race theory, whatever it might be, right, these little things, the more that those kind of candidates could get support, especially when we're starting to see the kind of money flow into these local elections from these kind of billionaire backers. But that's, I know that's getting us far afield, but that's kind of like where my head goes in all of this, is that the Mastriano, I mean, I tend to agree with your analysis about like the statewide election. I can't see how he gets elected.
I think for the statewide and for the House and Senate races, like it's pretty easy to define these people pretty quickly. I mean, like, I feel like these people will slip through the election process if the party is unorganized, like the opposition, like the Democrats, and if we allow them to go undefined. Like if there's no organizing to get out the vote and to drive out votes in off-year elections or odd-year elections, then yes, I think that's an issue. But
look, just look at the pattern, right? What happened in 2010?
I think that it's also getting to the point where this is a negative feedback loop within the Republican Party. Like, I feel like that they're going, like, I think what we're seeing now is completely different than what like we saw at the Tea Party movement. Yeah, there's new backers emerging, but I also feel like you are going so far off the fringe where you can't sustain yourself and you can't bring people along with you.
Look, I agree. This is not sustainable, right? But when have they ever been about sustainability? It's never about like sustaining this stuff. It's about like what's directly in front of you. But here's my point. My point is more not about the message or that. It's about the strategy, right? It's about the structure. So like, here's why I think what happened in 2010 with the Tea Party movement, right, is very similar to what's happening now with QAnon. Is that what happened? The vacuum. What the Republicans and these big donors figured out, right, was that at the national election that they were losing support, right? But they also recognized that the Democratic Party like was completely like inept in its focus on state elections, right? So statewide elections, because all the money was going to these national elections and big profile stuff. And the Democrats' theory of the case, like before 2010, was always like, yeah, we're going to go for these, we're going to have our focus there and it's going to carry down the ticket. But state parties, state structures were just kind of in disarray. And Pennsylvania is a perfect example of that. Right, state party in Pennsylvania, in terms of like having an organized structure, is just kind of falling apart. So what the donors did is they shifted for the focus on the state because they saw where the power was in the state, and that's where they put the pressure. Now we're seeing a similar kind of dynamic, except where's the gap? Right, if you just look at Pennsylvania, it's like where has the Democratic Party refused to organize? Right, in the bulk of the state. Right. This is why people like, this is why kind of like Sisters of the Night podcast, Caucus podcast is so critical. Right. Because it's kind of focusing on the organizing that is going on in the, in these areas that have been, ignored by the Democratic Party. And thanks, until recently, only thanks to like activists like Shanna, like activists like, we saw the candidates that ran in Cumberland County last year.
I mean, we're also seeing this in populous areas, like in the Philadelphia suburbs, which I think is pretty concerning. Like, like this is like for me, like like this is like the last breed. Like this should be this movement is not sustainable in like areas like they're traditionally Democratic or becoming Democratic areas. Like the stuff that's going on. I just don't. I mean, I think what's going to happen is like if they get through, it's just because of the county parties just being completely inept and more of a social party and more of your social status as being a county chair or something within the Southeast. Because if you're the county chair in Delco or Bucks or Montco, it's more of a position of like
cultural authority.
Within the party versus like a position like like actually organizing and stuff like that. I mean,
if you put the chairs, if you put the leaderships in like the Republican Party in these counties next to the Democratic ones, in a lot of these counties, you have these wars inside the Republican parties where you've got like the right wing are doing organizing work, door knocking and stuff like this. Thank God. I mean, thank God for the organizing that's taken place since Trump, right? By DSA, by people associated with the Women's March, with people who, who've been on the ground doing the organizing work, right? And a lot.
We have a party chair in Dauphin County that's just completely useless. Like,
well, that's been clear for a while, right?
Yeah. And she'll probably get reelected because no one else wants to become the county chair. And literally there hasn't been a single tweet on the Twitter account since last July. With important races coming up locally, there hasn't been any Facebook posts. I mean, like our county chair is more important with like promoting her own personal brand because she has a column with Penn Live or a podcast with Jeff Lord than doing anything else, doing anything of significance. Like, and it's like, yeah. So I mean, there
you go again, Sean, making friends.
I mean, but it's the truth.
No, I know. So anyway,
our county chair is the best thing that ever happened to the Republican Party in Dauphin County because her incompetence allows Republicans to keep on winning.
Yeah.
When we have like 8,000, 9,000 voter advantage.
Crazy. Well, listen, I didn't mean to take us too far down that rabbit hole, so I apologize. But it's just been one of these things that I've been kind of mulling over again and again about what are the effects of this going to be.
I mean, for me, it's not sustainable, but it should be something that should be. It's not sustainable, but it's also something that should be easily defeatable. And if you don't defeat it, it's your own problem for not defeating it.
But the consequences are huge.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, it's like it seems like I agree with that 100%, right? It's avoidable, it's preventable, and it's pretty clear about what needs to be done. But is that going to happen? It's like, that's what I mean. It's like the consequences are pretty big for that. Anyways, all right, let's talk
about this story. Can
we talk about this? I've been dying. I took us down this rabbit hole when I'm dying for you to talk about this story. I think this story is freaking awesome.
So as like the shit show was unfolding last week on Twitter.
Back to Doug Mastriano. Hey, Doug. You are an idiot. All right.
So the Arizona Mirror, which is part of the same network of nonprofit media outlets that the Capitol Star is part of, published a story about the Republican audit happening in Maricopa County. And they found out that this company called Wake Technologies, it's part of the audit out there and getting paid by Sidney Powell. Yes, that's Sidney Powell.
This is such a great story.
I mean, it's not great, but
no, it's not. I'm sorry, but it's just like, it's that kind of thing. You're like, how can this be possible? Right? it's like that kind of thing. Senator Mastriano strong-armed and off. I don't even know if he represents Fulton County. I think he might. I'm not sure. Probably does. Emily would know this, but Fulton County, he strong-armed the county commissioners and the election officials in Fulton County to do an audit of the 2020 election results in Fulton County. And this is a county where
7,000 people voted and 6,000 voted for Trump. Like, so, you know, like, this is a county where like this happened. And like so this was not authorized with like a credible company. Obviously, this company was involved to stop the steal movement and with Sidney Powell, and you know, this audit was not authorized by anyone from Dominion Voting Machines, and so they spoiled $20,000 worth of Dominion voting machines in Fulton County.
This is great.
And now the county has to pay $20,000 for new machines because Dominion said you cannot use these in the primary that just passed. So, and on like one of the paper documents that was handed over to Mastriano or to like Senator Mastriano said Sidney Powell will pay for this, like, because they didn't get money for the audit. So now like this, like, and yeah, I mean, this is just an insane fucking story. I had to read it a couple times to like conceptualize.
It's just
like
crazy. I mean, like the fact that like Mastriano is even connected to this story is.
I know, no, I'm not surprised, but that doesn't surprise me whatsoever. But like, what there has to be accountability from this. Like, you know, we were on the Capitol. I'm not going to name anyone, but like we had an off the record conversation with a legislator, and you know, someone was like, what the fuck happened in Fulton County? And they're like, there better be charges and legal action from this.
So
like this is something that the attorney general has to get involved with. Totally. And it'll be a completely like derelict of duty if Shapiro doesn't, you know, hold Mastriano accountable or look into this
simply
because Mastriano is going to be running for governor next year.
Totally. I mean, so listen, just listen to this, right? So this is like, so Dominion said that the county, this is from this, you know, the story, again, from the Arizona Mirror. Dominion said that the county would not be able to use the machines, is what you said, but moving forward, the company required the county to lease new machines at a cost of $25,000. This is in addition to the $41,000 contract that it has with Dominion for 2021. Right. So you're talking about like, this is a small county, right? So now here's the kicker, right? Maricopa County, right, which is the largest county in Arizona, right? Maricopa County, or I think the largest population, right, is now facing a similar issue. Arizona Secretary of State Katie Hobbs informed the county's Board of Supervisors on Thursday that it shouldn't use the machines that Cyber Ninja examined, right? And she said that it would consider decertifying them if the county attempted to use the machines for another election. The county has said that it will not use the machines again. So this is actually having direct costs on counties of like several tens of thousands of dollars, right? Because they're mucking around in this stuff. And the fact that Mastriano is kind of like out in front of this is incredible.
Yeah.
This is Christopher. Christopher says, we need to get the guys on TikTok who show up to politicians' offices to induct them into the Voter Suppression Hall of Fame to make the trip to PA. I'm all on board. I'm going to look them up. If you've got their TikTok, got a link to that. Throw it, please throw it in the comments. I will get on that.
I'm sorry, I'm a boomer. What's TikTok?
Yeah. Keep on going. Keep on going. Oh God.
But like, it is. Yeah, I mean, like this story is that story is just fucking nuts.
It is so. I mean, it's like, you know, because like one, we talk about the wasted. You know, you just think about the like just the what do they call it? The cascading effects of these like absolutely insane pursuits, you know, these lawsuits and all these stop the steal stuff. It's actually now it's like, it's going to have the effect of, say, bankrupting some counties. It's freaking crazy. I mean, it's just so crazy. Like,
yeah, I mean, and also like, I know like this is something that's not going to go away.
No, it is
like, not. There might be like this isn't going away anytime soon. I mean, like these type of small audits are popping up all over the country, but like also like these there's a whole there's going to be accountability one way or another from this. Like,
Yep. Okay, so this just broke. The bill to establish a bipartisan January 6th commission has failed in the Senate. The vote was 54 to 35. There you go.
so that means it passed.
No. Oh no. Oh no.
Oh, because we have the filibuster.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. That's right, because it's the filibuster, man. So the filibuster defeats the majority. You see how that works out? It's a really nifty trick.
Yeah.
So there you go. Anyway, sorry to distrail. That just kind of popped up.
Yeah. I mean, I wish we could go back to the old filibuster rules, but yeah. So I mean, like, so this story happened. I mean, I definitely think there's gonna be more stories to come from this. You know, I definitely think that, you know, the writers at the Capital Star, I was talking to Caruso about this. They knew this story was happening. I was like, hey, how come you guys didn't get the scoop? And they're like, oh, well, because they were in Arizona and they got it. And so like they got the, but yeah, like, you know, you're kind of like opening yourselves up to a lot of right to know requests at this point. Tell Doug Mastriano it was me.
Sorry,
But-
I'm just responding. So okay, yeah. So that's just an amazing story. It's just an amazing story. Do check out the link. Do check out the link to the Arizona Mirror story. It's just like, it really is the kind of thing you just have to you have to read the story a couple times really to understand what exactly happened.
It's like okay, so it's like the meme from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia with Charlie, and like this the web he has set up behind him, like all like the like just plotting everything out.
To like put a pin in the yarn with the
yeah.
exactly.
It's just like, yeah.
Crazy. Yeah. So, all right. So a couple quick things before we go to break. Yes, we've got the critical race theory people are kind of heating things up here in Pennsylvania. Russ Diamond and Barbara Gleim. Yep. Yes. Surprise, Russ Diamond, Barbara Gleim, both of them. Yes, they're seeking co-sponsors right now for that will penalize any school district that it will be teaching critical race theory. And again, what they mean by that, how they're doing it, to say if you have any belief they actually know what they're talking about in any substantial way, it's no, this is the nationalized argument of the right wing that is being popularized across there. So these, you know, local politicians and statewide politicians could just pick it up off the shelf and use this in their campaigning. But it's going to have direct effects on what's happening in our school districts. That's why we've got nut jobs running in the Penridge School Board elections, the QAnon believers who say that they're, you know, big kind of opponents of critical race theory. That's how it is. So, yep, keep an eye out on that. We'll have more on that coming up. And then, of course, once again, right here in Bucks County, yes, a Bucks County man by the name of Leonard Ridge, right, comes out and he's arrested for allegedly taking part in the January 6th election. Yes, another Bucks County man. We are #1 county in the #1 state that went to the insurrection. Thank you very much.
I want to, like, okay, so, you know, we talked about this before the podcast, but like I grew up like in the Juniata area of Philadelphia, which is like part of like the lower Northeast, the river wards. You have in that area, you got Fishtown, Tacony, Bridesburg, Juniata, Kensington, Frankfort, like Port Richmond. And like, you know, it was also like a big area to white flight in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. You know, I saw the tail end of white flight happening when in my school. I was, you know, we went from like over 1,200 kids to down to like 300 by the time I graduated grade school. You know, like, so I watched that like tail end of white flight happen before we eventually moved out of the city, like when I was in high school. Like,
White flight.
it seemed like all these people moved to like Lower Bucks, Yardley, Norristown, or not Norristown, but like Yardley, and then Levittown, Ben Salem, Bristol, like that whole like corner of like Bucks County seems to just get like populated by everyone from like the river wards, Philadelphia, when they moved out back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And you said even like in Warminster.
Oh,
too.
totally.
Like,
now the freaking, I'm telling you, there's people now there. Their kids that moved out are now moving to my freaking neck of the woods. And you could draw the line right between those movements, which I think it was a really good observation you made.
And it's just like, it's just like, here we have another example. I wouldn't be surprised if their family was from the River Wards part of Philadelphia. I mean, when I go to like Ben Salem, I call it New Kensington, because it's pretty much all the Kenzos who got money back in the 70s and 80s, moved out. And for those who don't know, Kenzo is like, some of a derogatory term for the people who grew up in that neighborhood, but like, that's what we called them, like Kenzos. It's my dad grew up, my dad's from Kensington originally, but like, they all moved out to like these parts of like Bucks County, and it's really not that surprising.
No.
That like, this is where everyone from the insurrection went, like seeing like Newtown and stuff like that. Like, yeah, I'm just not surprised.
All I got to say is like, because I'm not from Pennsylvania, so I just wish they would have given me a freaking guide to this stuff ahead of time, so I could have like made better choices in terms of where I decided to locate myself. Right. But whatever, I guess ignorance is never a defense, right, when it comes to this. So just got to fight.
Unless you're Tucker Carlson.
Well, of course. But in this Bucks County guy, I just want to read just a little bit of this here. So this is about this guy, Leonard Ridge. Say, according to the FBI, one post Ridge shared. Wait, where am I reading this from? It's called the digital. I don't know. But so according to the FBI, one post Ridge shares a screenshot from a news video showing security personnel inside the Capitol with guns drawn on a barricaded door. The image included the caption, "You deserve to live in fear," right? And then the image was accompanied by a tweet from former President Donald Trump with the words altered to say, "I am the Senate. I am the living Constitution. My power belongs to me. I'm not leaving." So, needless to say, he's been arrested. Right.
Also, I mean, it's just amazing how these people fucking snitch on themselves.
Yeah.
Like, just by putting selfies up on TikTok or YouTube or like, Snapchat, Facebook, Parlor. Like, it's just, fuck talking about like microchips and shit like that.
I know this is why this, if you start to look for, say, rational kind of coherence, it's just not there. Right. I mean, this is why, because like, on the one hand, you talk about like, we're afraid that everyone's watching, you're being monitored under that. And then on the other hand, you go to a social media platform and you kind of like bear your kind of like, insurrection, crimes. Right. So like, what world do you live into? If you're so worried about your privacy, wouldn't you be like not being online? No, of course not. It doesn't work that way. Anyways, should also say Shannon basically said that, also we've got the anti-abortion bills and pro-gun bills kind of passed out of committee this week in Pennsylvania, which is, again, it shows you that everything is heating up big time.
Did you say the abortion bills as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I was tweeting something out.
Yeah, the fetus funeral bill, right, coming out, for example.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That bill supported by Frank Ryan, who's a wife beater and had a PFA against him. Like, like it's just amazing. Like well,
and this is what Christopher said, right? I'll read the comment. It says, "I was debating the fetus funeral bill with Representative Jones yesterday on Facebook, and essentially he said it's Frank Ryan is a great guy and therefore I support it." That's the depth of that kind of a conversation. How about that?
Yeah, Chris Jones is a fucking moron.
Yeah, well,
another whack job. Like,
there you go.
It's also yeah, like I'm done.
Yep, I'm done.
Off to the next.
There you go. All right, everybody. So that's got a PA wrap up. We're going to go into today's last call in just a minute. So I want to remind you that you can become a patron and help support the show for as little as $5 a month. Just go to patreon.com/rcpress. We will be back right after this quick break with this week's last call. Back in a minute. Welcome back, everybody. This is Raging Chickens Out to Coop podcast. It's our last call. Well, we should talk beer news, space news, and everything kind of that's just kind of mulling around kind of our brains. But as I said in today's intro, we're not going to be doing beer recs for a little bit. We're going to let some of this stuff shake out. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Just want to give some quick space news today. There's actually lots going on, but just not enough time in the day to do it. So the battle of the billionaire space barons is really heating up. You see, you remember there was a few weeks back, we talked about this on the show, is that there was a contract that was a competitive contract for who was going to develop the moon lander. Okay, and there was some discussion initially to want to have two contracts, make sure you have backup and so on. But after a whole bunch of considerations, SpaceX won that contract. And Bezos and his space company called Blue Origin, they got all kind of pissed off. They kind of filed all sorts of, what do you call appeals about the way the decision was made. It wasn't fair and blah blah blah. What it came down to it is like what they found is that the SpaceX, this is Starship, right? The Starship basically fit a whole bunch of the capacities of it, and not only would that ship be able to go to the moon, right, and carry a tremendous amount of cargo, assuming they ever get the thing to work, right, but then it would also be able to then be go right on to Mars, right, from there. So they wouldn't need another new ship to be developed in order to do this. They'd be able to continue the improvement. So there's a bunch of this stuff, and SpaceX came in as cheaper than all the other ones, right? So all those things came into place. So Bezos got really kind of upset. And see, one of the stories, I've been listening to a bunch of these space podcasts this past week too, as well. I was out working in the yard and stuff. And one of the things that's really interesting about the different strategies in terms of the way that these were designed. In many cases, SpaceX was the underdog in terms of traditional space contracts. And why is that? Well, it's because what has normally happened in a lot of the the big contracts for whether it's rockets or whether it's satellite technologies, whatever it might be, the companies that are kind of behind them, they try to kind of establish bases right, in key areas around the country, right? Why? Well, because then they could influence legislators. Right. So if you're trying to get legislators in order to kind of vote for a particular proposal that's going to support your company, it's helpful, right, to actually have a facility that it's going to provide jobs in their district. Right. So that was, the kind of historic strategy of especially these kind of military, like, aerospace companies like Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, those kind of things, right? That's how they've dealt it. And what Bezos did is that Bezos and Blue Origin, they went with that model. They call it the national model. They try to kind of locate, things in key districts, right? They put their headquarters in Washington, D.C., even though they don't have rockets in Washington, D.C., right? But that was kind of the idea, right? They were going to try to get themselves in and cozy up to the influencers, cozy up to politicians in order to kind of get the contract. SpaceX, on the other hand, they didn't do that. They don't have the presence, like in terms of in Washington D.C. in the same way. They've got new facilities in Texas. That is true, but also kind of up in California, and so they didn't have the same kind of depth in terms of located in the districts. But when it came down to it, they have proven technology. I can't remember how many hundreds of rockets they've flown now. They've been able to demonstrate it. And what NASA basically said is like, well, look, they're already showing it, right? They've already got a working model. They've already doing this, and they're going to be cheaper. Where Blue Origin and this other company, Dynetics, something like this, which is one of the connected to military contractors, they didn't have it all together yet. They can't even fly yet. So why are we going to go with them? So they went with SpaceX. Anyways, so after, again, this is what the reason why I said all that stuff is because that national model seems to have been working, at least in Bezos' favor now, because as they filed the appeals, basically saying that they were treated unfairly, he's not going to be able to have his space company. The Senate is now kind of preparing a $10 billion bailout for Blue Origin, right? Basically awarding a second contract to Blue Origin as a backup for the moon lander, even though they're going to go with SpaceX for it. This is all about the freaking, the influence of money. And this comes, I didn't say this in the show notes, because this comes at the same time that on the Washington Post front page, I believe they had an ad. Bezos took out an ad basically saying that Amazon isn't unfair to its workers. Right. So you get to see this kind of billionaire influential money. So this is just kind of like a fascinating story if you follow the minutia of it, which I have done for the past week. The other kind of story that kind of blew my mind when it comes to space stuff, the European Space Agency, they're looking to develop a GPS and communication networks around the moon, right, to aid Earth communications of future missions. So this is, you keep on hearing me say, when I'm talking about galactic capitalism, and I'm saying that this is why we need to pay attention to some of these things, is because the amount of money and infrastructure and influence that is going to come for this. And really, I'm telling you, we are on the precipice of a really significant shift in terms of where and how big, gigantic sums of money and influence are going to be spent, right? We see this concentration of wealth and capital, and the infrastructure is now being built to support that, right? In kind of like near Earth orbit, and now it's going to be around the moon. So when the European Space Agency says they're going to establish a GPS system like we have on Earth, except around the moon, right? And a telecommunication network that would actually allow for communications like across, the moon and back and forth to Earth, that rapidly improves the ability from people who are sitting on Earth and looking at some different rover missions in order to kind of to make kind of very, very quick decisions about where rovers are, and when personnel are down, be able to kind of locate them and communicate them kind of relatively instantaneously compared to what you have now. Now it has to go through this complicated system of relays that, the Earth and the moon have to be positioned the right ways in order to do this. So this is what they're looking to start with in the next couple of years. And so this is fascinating, right? In terms of seeing the kind of investments going on here, because those investments are not going to be made and just for the sake of making them. Right. They're building something. And these podcasts that I've been listening to over across the world, they talk about the need to establish a low Earth orbit or kind of space economy. Those are the terms these people are talking within, right? And again, the general public is not talking about that. These are where kind of like what is happening in those industries, and with kind of NASA and the government. This is kind of really critical stuff. So anyways. So that's my space news for the week. I'll kind of leave it at that. The bigger news about why we're not giving beer recommendations has to do with the explosion of the kind of starting Me Too stuff, right, within the craft beer industry, right? But more so than that, even more than that, right? A kind of a broader racism, say abuse of workers, right? I mean, Sean has been mentioning this, has talked about this kind of quite frequently in the past, right? Not as
working conditions.
I mean, not as as directly as we're seeing happen right now. But what really got this going? There's this woman. Her name is Brienne Allen. She's a production manager at Notch Brewing Company in Salem, Massachusetts. She just kind of was like, hey, I'm going to pose this question, on my Instagram and say, after some of her experience, she said, is anyone else experiencing sexist comments as part of their work? And it exploded. Right, is that you had women and kind of men and kind of African Americans and talk about, like, share their experiences about, in some cases, really, really traumatic abuse that they were subjected to as part in the craft beer industry. And a lot of people, one, didn't know about or have looked the other way, in part because craft beer is, cool and hip, right? And that was allowed to flourish. And it goes to show you, like, no matter, how quote unquote progressive or community oriented any business is going to be, which is, again, you've heard me talk about this on the show multiple times about why I'm always plugging free will, is because, look, they're located in this community. I've seen the impact that it's had, and people actually, community gets together around all this stuff. But even if those feelings are really good, and even if there's been positive impacts in the community, it does not mean that is the same thing on the inside, right? And the inside, very often you can see kind of, women in particular are subjected to all sorts of abuse. And it happens, in an industry that is, again, male dominated and so on. You've heard me talk about, and again, I'm going to, after the show today, I'm going to kind of put out another feeler to see where they're at with that. But the head brewer at Narragansett Brewery in Providence, Rhode Island, She's really kind of interested in these questions. It has been before all this stuff broke, and they're setting up a new brewery there. So we had to wait until that gets finished before she could come on the show. But she's dying to come on and talk about labor conditions, about sexism in the industry, and so on like this. So I can't wait to have her on. I think I'm also going to reach out to Brianne Allen to see if we can get her on the show to talk about this stuff too as well. But I mean, we first talked about this last week, right? Going, Sean, you were kind of like, following kind of what was breaking on a kind of Untitled Hands, and now we're seeing a whole series of other Philadelphia-based breweries also kind of showing up in this.
Yeah, and like the Inquirer posted another long expose on Tired Hands. Follow up from like they talked to 10 former employees.
The looking at the beer.
they talked to 10 former employees. None of them went on the record with their names, but they recounted stories. I think a couple did, but like fear of like retribution for working in the industry. I mean, you heard things about like detailing incidents. I mean, I just typed in craft beer into the news drop for Google.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, it is every craft beer brewery in the country that's pretty much experiencing this right now. I mean, what do you expect in an industry that's 95% dominated by males? Like, I mean, I don't want to laugh, but like, that's like, it's not all that surprising. I mean, like hearing some of the names that have popped up, the Gene Barrett from Tired Hands has always been a pretentious asshole that's popped up in conversations. Another one is Hill Farmstead, which is like one of the best breweries, rated as like the best brewery in the country, and their beer is some of the best beer like in the country and in the world. Like it's like their beer is very clean, true to style, something you expect like in a European type beer that's like super clean and stuff like that. Like you have the best breweries in the country. They're getting ravaged by this. I mean, we've had stuff in Philadelphia that happened again this week. The board member from Evil Genius was forced off the board from Philly Loves Beer. But then Erin Wallace, who owns Devil's Den, said she just, her staying on this board would be an endorsement of their behavior. And so she stepped down in protest. Another board member was Thomas Cahoe. He is the founder of Yards Brewing. Yards Brewing is a huge brewery in Philadelphia. They've been around for decades at this point. They just opened up a large brewery in the Fishtown area or Northern Liberties, and they're under a discrimination lawsuit for firing an employee who was pregnant at the time. Like, and this story came out earlier this month. Like, like this stuff has been bubbling up. You'd see these stories pop up every now and then. Founders was an example of like racism a couple years ago, and they were forced to address it, where like workers of color who were getting passed over promotions from people who were newer and white. No, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, this is something that's not surprising.
Yeah, something not surprising. And, a long time coming. Is like, what's interesting is that I remember, again, I'm hesitant. I'm hesitant to have anything I'm going to say to be taken one way or another, right? I'm about free will, for example, like just because I want to be clear. I want to reiterate what I was saying before, is that my decision today to not kind of give beer recommendations has nothing to do with something that I've already heard about it. But I've also, like I said before the show, I've been checking their social media feeds to see if anything's coming up after the show. I'm also going to be checking out, the stuff from Brianne Allen. There's a Google Doc which kind of recording a bunch of these stories and breweries and things like this. Just what I think it's important to let it all kind of shake out is like, I just remember being, my wife and I went to an event at Free Will. They had like beer and cheese or something like this. And what was the coolest part I remember about that was that the people who led that whole kind of discussion, this pairing of beer and cheese stuff, they were women. They were women brewers. They were women who had gone and kind of looked at cheese and stuff. And when I've gone there, I've seen the kind of presence, always the presence. But again, seeing representation doesn't automatically lead to, doesn't correspond to what those conditions are going to be like, which has got me reason why I'm saying, we're just going to wait and see how where this all comes down here. And I'm going to ask some questions too as well. But the point of that, what was the point of that? The point was, I lost that one thread. I just think, this stuff is absolutely critical. Oh, I know what I was going to say. And then, one of the things that I would hope that we're going to see from craft brewers is, to see, people who are not, who have made a commitment, like a public commitment or a commitment in their workplaces in order to kind of prevent this kind of stuff, are going to come out and take leadership on it, right? Because I remember one of the things that Free Will did when they came out with, after the whole Black Lives Matter stuff, after the killing of George Floyd, they kind of very publicly came out in support of saying Black Lives Matter, right? And I think that in this area, I think they caught a ton of flack for that. And this area, especially when you've got such, concentration of Trump supporters and QAnon people, I was glad to see that. I'm hoping to see the same kind of stuff, but until we see this, we're gonna go.
And one of the things I forgot to mention with Tired Hands, they are forcing their owners out of the business to completely divest from the business. Like those talks are happening now, and they're also trying to work on establishing a profit sharing system for the employees who work there. Like they even said like, hey, it's going to be weird for us. We're going to start posting about beer again, but like, like we are running this company right now. And it's just
right.
Like we have to make a living, and it's just like we are working on, making sure the owner is divested from the company, and then that there are more protections in place.
Well, and this really makes the case for one of two things. Like one is that, two models going forth, like number one, right. The absolute, the very bare minimum, right. To have the unionized workers, right. With this kind of clear, with protections guaranteed under a contract. Right. So we saw some of that kind of starting up, kind of on the West Coast, where we saw, some of the craft breweries beginning to unionize, and that can be an avenue. But in some ways, even more so, the kind of stuff that you're talking about, or even the move towards, say, worker ownership of these breweries, right? So, and I recognize that there's all this stuff. Well, this was their business, but you know what? It's the brewers and the people that work there who make that place. Right. And so, the question is about, in my mind, the only way to really guarantee that community investment on the one hand and the prevention of this stuff long term might just be worker ownership. Right. At the very minimum. Right. Real strong kind of union representation of workers. But I almost think like the workers should own this thing and make the rules. But we shall see. We shall see. But it's been again, I would say absolutely fascinating to watch this kind of unfold and how quickly it is taking root, which tells you the depth of the problem, right? More than anything else.
It's the whole entire industry,
right? So cool. So so I think we're going to use that instead of kind of beer news in being focused on what beer releases are coming out this week. At least for the short term, we're going to be focusing a little bit more on what's happening with the story. I'm going to be reaching out to some folks who are willing to speak out about this within the craft beer industry. So either going to have them on Out to Coop Live, or we're going to have them maybe kind of separate interviews. I've got some ideas for some separate interviews on this stuff, so we shall see. So anyways, so that's all I got for today. What else you got going on here?
Nothing too much. Gonna be in this weekend. I'm getting some right to know requests in, hard documents. So I will be spending my weekend sifting through that, because that's what I love doing in my free time.
Yeah.
I bought.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Sean, pretty much all your time is your free time, right? except for the call. Yeah. So really, does it kind of? It's more like a work-life balance thing you got going there.
Yeah, and then I'll be making a nice pound-and-a-half dry aged steak sometime this weekend that I bought, probably tonight. So looking forward to that. I'm going to go with the reverse sear method, which always works out well.
Yeah. So I'm gonna throw this into your mix. So, have you ever experimented with carbon steel?
No. Are you talking about for a pan?
Yeah.
No, I have a cast iron pan. That's about it.
Yep. So, I'm just put this on your kind of long-term thing to play around. I don't have one yet. I've been thinking about it. But there's a couple companies. One of them is called Made In, which they do these carbon steel pans, and they're significantly lighter than cast iron, obviously. But I've been reading a bunch about them, and they seem to be really good, getting a lot of kind of like thumbs up when it comes to the searing stuff. So I know you've been doing a bunch of the searing and things like this. So just something to kind of like slowly begin to kind of take a peek at.
I will may consider that.
I know. I'm just, I'm always looking for ways to help you get a leg up over the rest of your family. That's all I'm saying. I'm just like, something that you're going to be able to bring to the table now that you're kind of like in the direct competition with your mom and your brother over cooking.
I do like using my cast iron pan though, like skillet. I mean,
I'm 100% for cast iron. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I mean, like it's kind of like it is definitely like the pan I use the most.
Yeah.
And then one thing I love using is my the Le Creuset sauteuse pan I bought a couple weeks ago, over the winter. Yeah. And when I do it that
a couple weeks ago,
yeah, no, I use it fairly often, especially when I'm making like roasted potatoes.
Yeah, like
fry up some potatoes, cube them, season them, and then after they get done cooking for about 20 minutes, put some water in there, steam, and then have them cooking in the water, and it softens them up.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm very excited that we're members of the local CSA here, Blooming Glen Farm. Next week is our first pickup week, which I'm totally excited. They've got pick your own strawberries out there. They've just got phenomenal food. So I'm my goal is the last summer was nuts for so many reasons. I mean, obviously with COVID and it just was. I kind of fell off the was kind of always playing catch up with we got to get to the farm, whatever's going to be there, and maybe we'll use some of this stuff, I don't know, but I'm going to kind of actively one of my goals for the summer is to actively plan some meals around like what's coming out from the Blooming Gun Farm that week, and really to kind of like doing some experiment on that. It's my goal. So I've also got just a book recommendation. Let me pause on the recommendation thing. I want to say book. I don't want to say book recommendation yet. I'm liking it so far, but I'm only about 3 chapters in. So I started reading this. It's a series now. This one is by Cory Doctorow. It's a book called Little Brother. It is kind of like in the kind of internet hackery kind of world of things, looking at surveillance stuff and all this. But the reason why I've decided to read this, I was listening to some show, I don't know, I think it might have actually been on Majority Report, where Cory Doctorow was a guest. And I followed him. I haven't read any of his books yet, but I've been very interested in it. But he just published this other book, right, which I also bought, right, How to Destroy Surveillance Capitalism, right? So this gives you a little bit of perspective on his angle on both as a novelist. So the kind of issues about this kind of make it very much into his writing. I mean, I'm already actually more than that. I'm about 5 chapters in. And it's already kind of clear like how this is getting set up. It's very much informed by the hysteria post 9/11, kind of in the years that follow, looking at the growth of the surveillance industry and so on. But this book right here, How to Destroy Surveillance Capitalism, is freaking phenomenal. So it's a really nice kind of intro. So I'll be reading that. I also bought the series. So the second book is called Homeland, and the one that was just published right here. Oh, you can, look at that green screen. Woo, Attack Surface. Right. So I got those. So that's part of my my reading list for the summer against that. So that's what I got, Sean.
Nice.
Yeah. So you got any other plans for the weekend?
No, nothing too much.
Yep. Yeah. We were going to go away. We're going to go to the mountains this weekend, but it's going to be pretty stormy and wet, so we're not going to go. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably gonna be inside all weekend. It's gonna be in the 50s out here in Harrisburg.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. There we go. All right, man. Well, hey, have a good one.
You too. I'll catch you next week.
Yeah, you got it. Hey, everybody. And so thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for the conversation. Once again, I want to remind you that you can help support this show by becoming a patron at patreon.com/rcpress for those $5 a month. We'll see you on Monday with Brian Bailey. We'll be talking higher ed beyond Pennsylvania and some of the kind of assaults that are happening. That's on Out to Coop Live Monday at 7. We'll be back next Wednesday with Cyril Mikaleko for the Wednesday show. See ya!